Greetings from Karachi. My grateful thanks to colleagues and friends who joined us today, members of Institute of Architects Pakistan, Arcasia members from Nepal, Sri Lanka and Malaysia, INTBAU chapters from London, Malaysia and Australia, and those from the Princess Trust. This is the first time we are venturing into such a large, trying to have this large assembly. So you will have to bear with us, particularly myself, as this is the first time that I'm making a presentation without seeing the faces and expressions of the audience. So it's difficult for me to gauge and judge as to what I'm saying and whether it's making sense to people or not. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us during these really difficult times when the world seems to have been turned truly, really upside down. It is a great privilege for me to address this virtual assembly, which transcends borders, to discuss topics which need particular attention at this time of great change being brought about by COVID-19, a virus that also transcends borders and has tragically impacted hundreds of thousands of lives around the world. As we know, this virtual assembly is not the only consequence of COVID-19. We know that once the lockdowns are over, we will all be confronted with an entirely variant worldview that will lead architecture and urbanism into divergent directions, as alluded to by Murad Jamil. Hopefully, these will be pathways that are more egalitarian, just, and humanistic. Now, before I begin, of course, I would like to thank very warmly Institute of Architects Pakistan, Rawalpindi Islamabad Chapter, especially Fawzia Asad Khan with her dynamic team and her wonderful young sort of colleagues who have put it all together and spearheaded the whole operation. I'd also would like to include Umar and Hamza and Salman, of course, for their outstanding effort in spearheading the event. Our thanks are due also to, of course, IAP President Arif Changezi and his team, including Mohsin, as well as PCATP Chair Kaleem Siddiqui and Vice Chair Amir Nazir Chaudhary for their support. And thank you, Murad Jamil, as always, for your enthusiasm in initiating such processes. We work together so often, as Murad has pointed out, especially during the days of disasters, and he's always been there to help out in so many different ways. So a little bit about Heritage Foundation of Pakistan. The work with Heritage Foundation has allowed me to explore many uncharted pathways after my retirement in year 2000. I remember I gave up architecture, my architectural practice in year 2000. So on the left here in this image, you'll see the amazing 16th century Timurid tomb adorned with scintillating ceramic tiles that Heritage Foundation has conserved at Makli World Heritage Site, the largest Muslim necropolis in the world. On the right is the reconstructed zero carbon earth masonry structure after countrywide floods of 2010, decorated by the rural housewife. So going forward to INTBAU Pakistan, as Murad has already explained, it was formed in 2018. He's also talked about our amazing executive committee and Murad himself and how we put it all together. So the INTBAU Pakistan conference was held in, as he said, in 2019, and it was a great success from many counts due to the unrelenting efforts and guidance of founder member and honorary advisor Murad Jamil and hard work of other founder members. The assembly was held at Zero Carbon Cultural Center at Zero Carbon Center, which is known as also ZC3, that you see in the slide. Through the efforts of Harriet Weinberg, Executive Director, INTBAU in London, we had enthusiastic participation of INTBAU chapters from various European countries, something like 5 of them, Malaysia and Australia and also US, as well as World Monuments Fund and Victoria and Albert Museum from UK, Social Design Circle and Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Heritage from the US, and humanitarian organizations, Spiritual Chords and Al-Imdad Foundation from South Africa, along with universities from Australia, China, and Senegal. The rare gathering of distinguished architects and academics, as well as students of architecture from all parts of Pakistan, was made possible due to the facilitation provided by IAP and PCATP. Now, the delegates spent 2 hectic days at 4-acre zero carbon residential campus situated at the foothills of Makli World Heritage Site. And I'm delighted that several of our distinguished conference delegates have joined us today. Among them are Gwyn Jenkins from Malaysia, and Lisa Skillen from Australia, and from Pakistan, Fozia Qureshi, Arif Changezi, Amir Nazir Chaudhry, Sadia Fazli, Samra Khan, Khadija Jamal, Ramiz Beg, and Mujahid Sadiq are with us today. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here again with us. Now, many delegates stayed overnight in the zero carbon R suite bamboo lodges. Their conical thatch roofs drawn from classical desert huts, as you can see. The log accommodation, because known as Lari Octagreen, is based on octagonal modules assembled in the form of a beehive, as you can see. They're very easy to link together. And so this is what we do. We use this particular form and make many different kind of configurations. Since the number of delegates exceeded the original number, we had to build another 24 rooms very quickly. So the Igloo form fitted with the prefabricated bathrooms thus provided speedy construction, and you can see what it looks like. Again, this form is something that has been developed over time in working in bamboo and trying out many different kind of formats. Now, the formal sessions were held in this 60-foot wide, 80-foot long, and 30-foot high bamboo marquee of at Zero Carbon Center. And the slide now shows, the next one shows general view of the assembly, which was addressed by His Royal Highness Prince of Wales in his profound video message, envisaging that in the future, it will be Muckley that will lead the way for zero carbon. You can see his picture on the top middle image that is there. Now, on this occasion, papers on the theme of green sustainable architecture and heritage management were read by eminent national and international experts. We had a real treasure of the papers that were read out at the time, and the way everybody interacted with each other and were able to discuss so many topics of mutual interest to do with how do we deal with zero carbon, as well as the role that heritage management can play in all this. Now, the field workshops were also organized and they were really on zero carbon materials, green skills and crafts, a rare occasion where world-renowned experts rubbed shoulders with non-literate master artisans and barefoot entrepreneurs using zero carbon materials such as lime, earth, and bamboo. And you can see in the pictures how everybody is so intensely involved in making things and doing things. And so they were experiencing green skills and practice of ancient craft of Kashi or glazed ceramic tiles. Now, at this time, the World Habitat Executive Director, David Ireland, presented the World Habitat Award 2018 trophy for Heritage Foundation to His Excellency, President of Pakistan. This you see on the right, the trophy is there, and our icon, the Chula icon, Pakistan Chula icon, is standing right there to receive it on behalf of many of the rural housewives that are there, and that is Champa with her blue sort of band there. And on the left, you see the zero carbon earthen artisan Chula, that is Pakistan Chula, that is co-created with rural housewives. So this is what women have been doing, and that's why the trophy was actually given to all these women, something like 60,000 of them who've actually done this. On the occasion, the President inaugurated the Zero Carbon INTBAU Training Center, Training and Resource Center that you see on the left, and on the interior on the right, dedicated to His Royal Highness Prince of Wales, acknowledging his support and championship of zero carbon methodologies. Now, the drawings that we have in the slide show the configuration of the rooms. Because of the use of very light domical bamboo roof, we were able to get a span of 18 feet in each room. So it's becoming, now we are able to handle quite really large spaces using only bamboo structures. Now, I would like to discuss topics of immediate concern, of course, brought about by COVID-19, and the role of Zero Carbon ADMAN, or Architects Disaster Management Network, that Murad Jamil has explained so well as mention of related topics that I have been discussing in other lectures that were recently delivered at various prestigious venues in the UK. First, the Jane Drew Award was, of course, a highly gratifying event for me, where the 4-hour program, impeccably curated by Architects Journal and Architectural Review, attended by an assembly of select audience of several W Award laureates, as well as architectural and media luminaries. Among them was Oliver Wainwright, who wrote a great empathetic article in The Guardian about my work. The event was held in the sensitively restored Battersea Art Center that you see here. The topics of my presentation range from zero carbon methodologies for co-building and co-creativity, and the importance of design in improving the life of impoverished communities. A couple of weeks earlier, I had the rare privilege to be invited to address audiences at both the Victoria and Albert Museums located in Scotland and in England. RIBA plus WITR lecture was held at the V&A Dundee, you see on the left, a spectacular, soul-lifting contemporary venue, if there was one, if you are familiar with Kengo Kuma's designs, where I was able to discuss my barefoot social architecture, or BAZA, at great length. Then, of course, in London, the joint RIBA, INTBAU, and V&A lecture organized by Chloe Lowe, Harriet Wenberg, and Laura Jones, and moderated by Harriet, where I discussed engagement of mendicant communities, the ones who are begging in sites such as the Muckley World Heritage Site. And this was really a most magnificent setting that I could be in at that time, dating to the 19th century. And it was Juliet, who is with us today, thanks to whose resourcefulness I got there on time. Such a hectic day it was. So thank you so much, Juliet. Also at the exclusive and highly private event of the World Monuments Fund by Executive Director John Darlington, memorable because the discussion was focused on Pakistan's cultural heritage with special emphasis on World Heritage Muckley. Now, another lecture, which is Architecture on Stage lecture of 90 minutes, was part of architectural presentation by the prestigious Architecture Foundation, headed by architectural critic Ellis Woodman, was delivered at the Barbican Center that you see on the left, which itself is an outstanding brutalist architecture tour de force of the 1960s, people who are familiar with this development. The event provided me the opportunity to expand on the value of barefoot social architecture, that is BAZA, along with the need to adopt non-engineered structures, which are safe, sustainable, and easily constructed. And the last presentation on the theme of saving Karachi's urban heritage just before the lockdown was at the glittering assembly planned by the famous author and shared architecture evangelist Philip Davies for the launching of Commonwealth Heritage Forum at the splendid Australia House that you see on the right. It is an opulent setting that exuded wealth and might as a reminder of the British Empire where sun never set, as we know. This was a long time ago, of course. I am pleased to see that Jyoti from INTBAU India has joined us, who also attended the event at that time. There are so many topics that need to be of concern to us as design professionals. Rising disparities around the world, global warming, climate emergencies, recurring disasters, climate migrants, and conflict-impelled refugee camps, along with now the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on architecture and urban design. And really have to now think about our role and how strongly we can actually be working in all these particular disasters that seem to be happening all the time and are becoming part of our lives. We must also remember that in the conventional building industry, energy consumption amounts to between 40 to 50% of worldwide usage, which adds a huge responsibility on building professionals. For me, it has been important to understand the ground realities of my own country and its people, from our cultural roots to socioeconomic conditions to the disasters we face. Now, as you can see in this slide, Pakistan is the custodian of rich and diverse heritage dating back to the Bronze Age. Its tangible heritage, beginning with Mohenjo-daro and Mehergarh, encompasses Hindu, Buddhist, and Gandhara remains, Sultanate period monuments to Mughal forts, palaces, and paradisal gardens, as well as Sikh and British period heritage. So there's so much there, and it's so varied and it's so diverse. And then, of course, this amazing intangible heritage, such a rich reservoir that exists, which is true with the Sufi traditions and spiritualism, folklore, folk traditions, oral history, and diverse crafts. Now, Pakistan, like LCDs or less developed countries, like other LCDs, also is among those nations that are struggling to keep up with the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, because of high poverty levels and low levels of education and healthcare. And you can see the deficits that we have between the high mother and child mortality, lack of clean drinking water, large-scale open defecation. Something like 10 million are needed at least if we were to have shared toilets alone. 18 million fuel-efficient clean stoves are needed. And of course, there's increased vulnerability due to successive disasters. 1 million safe shelters are needed in Sindh alone, and God knows what will happen when this pandemic has been dealt with. Now, Pakistan happens also to be the 7th highest vulnerable country confronted with recurring disasters as a result of climate change. Since, as we know, it lies on several fault lines and in the path of immense melting glaciers. And you can see the long list of recurring disasters of earthquakes and floods since 2005. Almost every year we've had either a flood or earthquake. And it's amazing how every time, especially the poor, have to, they suffer through it and then they have to rise above it. And it's becoming an impossible state. Which will become probably even worse, once we're out of these lockdowns. So due to this backdrop, I've been compelled to seek inspiration from cultural heritage and vernacular techniques in order to work out low-cost DRR or disaster risk resilient sustainable methodologies that resonate with the aspirations of communities living at the bottom of the pyramid. On the left, you see an earth building with a thatched roof, which is a school it's called the Jamil School with the help that we got from Murad, and it's built in Tandola Yar. And you can see that this is the way we are trying to deal with all the 3 aspects that I've discussed earlier. Now we know that the present world order has created soaring inequalities and accumulation of wealth among the 1%. And if you're familiar with economist Thomas Piketty's book, Capital in the 21st Century, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then there is the deprived state of lower echelons, which is again, through great research by Wilkinson and Pickett, you can see in their spirit level how important it is for us to understand about the inequality that exists. So I would like to ask the question that I raised in my lecture at the Royal Institute of British Architects at 66 Portland Place in 2016, and have since raised in almost all gatherings of architects around the world. And the question is, should architects continue to be an instrument in the hands of just that 1%? Think about that. Think about that. Or can architects spearhead a movement for addressing the plight of the lower echelons, at the same time prevent the depletion of the planet's resources? These are things that I think we need to get involved. We need to be aware of, and we need to see whether we can come up with the alternatives and how to tackle these issues. Now, must we aspire only to become prima donnas, creating star architecture for the select few, however much damage it may cause to the earth? And that too in a world where 1 in 8 persons goes to bed hungry every night. And now I ask you, my friends, can architects play a role in attending or mending the imbalances and stitching this highly damaged earth tapestry? We have to look at solutions which would be sustainable. We have to look at solutions which will not hurt the earth much more. Today, there are several movements aiming at a changeover to more sustainable future lifestyles for humankind. There's transition design and degrowth movements that are gathering momentum in the West, while my own barefoot social architecture, Baza, aims at social and ecological justice for the disadvantaged. These are all movements that we have to be looking at very seriously, because they are all trying to see how we can bring about sustainability in the way that we are now moving forward. Now you can see that by utilizing Baza principles, Heritage Foundation has been able to provide humanitarian assistance to 840,000 people over 8 years. That's over 100,000 persons per year. By using green sustainable methodologies, it targets 12 out of 17 sustainable development goals. And it is possible at a very low cost. It is possible if we have co-production and co-creativity and we work with people themselves. So the struggle for ecological justice and sustainable alternatives is now addition of another imperative consisting of readying ourselves for dealing with the post-COVID-19 world. A virus that has equalized the social system. It does not differentiate between the haves and the have-nots. It does not guarantee life because of your status or wealth, or how many designer objects you might possess. It reminds us that we need to take up the guardianship of Earth's resources seriously and pursue design in the service of an equitable world. It is with this background that architect Murad Jamil and I felt that there was a need for a network of architects who are interested in collaborating with each other to develop alternative ways of practicing architecture. The Zero Carbon Architects Disaster Management Network, or ADMAN, seeks to develop design alternatives for preparedness, prevention, and management of disasters, utilizing zero or low carbon sustainable methodologies. The intent is to enable vulnerable communities to withstand foreseeable natural and human-made disasters. The network will welcome architects, students, and other humanitarian professionals in helping develop alternative designs using sustainable materials and non-conventional techniques for architecture and urban design for disaster preparedness and post-disaster development. It will also create a liaison mechanism and with professional organizations and academic institutions. Now, as a response to COVID-19 emergency, we have designed prefabricated camp structures for quarantine, isolation wards, and sanitation. These are modular structures utilizing prefab bamboo panels, which can be fabricated and erected very, very quickly. These are structures built with particularly designed panels, which have been used extensively in my designs in the past, which are both flood and seismic resistant. And bamboo is really used in many countries. Many architects are familiar with it, but I think it needs to be spread as much as possible. These are low-cost modular elements that are quick to fabricate and can be speedily assembled with limited workforce. So there's the quarantine unit you see on the left top, and that's like a tent, but very quickly put up. The one at the bottom has an attached bathroom with it. Of course, the one on the top can also have a bathroom, which is separately built in a kind of a prefab bathroom. And then you see a 12-bed ward, again a modular structure which can be built very, very quickly. On the top left, you see the prefab bathroom, and on the bottom left, you see a wash stand that is also made out of bamboo. Now, the single prefab quarantine unit is built with curved bamboo joists and clad with jute fabric. These are ideal for isolating a family member in crowded habitat of the poor. You can see it's the octagon, and they're the joists that have been curved and immediately creates, they are all prefabricated, brought to the site and just assembled together. And something like 4 people can actually, build about 4 of them in a day. So it's very quick to be able to put together. So if you will just look at the animation here, you'll be able to see how this whole thing actually does work. If this can start, we can see that first you have to make, of course, a base. And this is all lime concrete base that you will put in. And the bamboo pieces have to be assembled elsewhere, can be assembled elsewhere. They can be assembled on the site as well. And after putting a beam at the bottom, like a plinth beam, you start putting on the various joists and then attach purlins to it, and that is all that you need to do. It's very quick, and then you can cover it all with a jute fabric or with any other material. My architect has done this rendering, which is a little bit dark, but you could have any color that you want, so that is not really important. So then the next one is a single prefab quarantine unit with attached prefab bathroom that can also be built very speedily. And if you look at the animation here, you will see that it's really the same system that starts, and how the prefab panels can be brought in, and the bathroom can just be built again very, very quickly attached to it. So these are all methodologies which provide you with a very kind of low cost solutions and expertise from people who are really non-literate. Those are the ones that put it together, but they can learn it all quite quickly. And this costs only about 25,000 to 28,000. I think the early one cost about 12,000 or so. So the next one is a bamboo prefabricated modular 12-bed ward with prefabricated changing rooms and bathroom attached for patients and healthcare personnel. The plan shows how the configuration is. At the bottom, you can see the changing rooms and the entrance where the arrows are. Yeah, and you go into the lobby where you have the nurses station, and then there are 6 beds on the right and 6 on the left, with bathroom attached to them, and then behind or at the rear of the nurses station, you have the toilet for the staff. Now, in the next slide, you will see the animation that shows the sequence of construction for the ward. This again is based on basically a lime concrete plinth and flooring. We don't use any cement at all. These are the panels that are prefabricated, brought on the site, put together, with ring beams and again construction of the curved joists that are again bolted to the ring beam. In this case, there are two of them, or at least they have to be joined together, and then the purlins join the whole thing, and then you can finish them off with the fabric, the camp fabric, or you can, if you want to make them permanent, you can actually have matting and lime and sand or lime and mud plaster as well. So this is the way you will have your laid out done. You will have your plinth and the floor, and then you can just keep on putting up the modular units, and this can go also quite quickly. So and the next one you will see is, now we'll move on to the bathroom, which is so important, and now we've learned that it is something that all of us must have, and as I mentioned earlier, there's millions that are needed in the country. I'm hoping that after this experience of COVID-19, the government will put its effort to see that everybody gets a bathroom. But that's, you know, sometimes I think that it's because it's women who wanted it, so there is not much emphasis on it, but I think to give dignity to women, we must have bathrooms for every family. So this is the sequence as to how this can be put together. And it's again very quickly made with the same prefab panels that are again joined together, and then the same kind of roof can be placed. Roofs can be, of course, any kind. They can be conical, they can be domical. We now have many different ways of making the roofs. And so this you can see again is the same technique. And then, since hand washing is essential, we've also now developed a low-cost wash stand, which you will see in the next slide. This can be transported and installed anywhere. It uses quite a lot of our products that are being made at Makli by my women, especially the mirror mihrab and the basin that you see, which is a terracotta basin. So, but this can be anything, and again, that can be, you know, they can be really done very quickly and placed in position. Now, the open source designs can be utilized freely. We have also developed online training tutorials for their fabrication and erection. And now you see, this is the way the tutorials are. I'm sorry, you probably can't read anything, but there's so many of these slides, and I thought it'll just take up too much time. I just wanted to make you aware or familiarize you with how it is being done. So basically, we have always a description, as you see on the middle, top middle slide, and then we have drawings to show how the whole thing is actually designed. And then a whole list of, or we talk about all the tools that are needed and also all the materials that are needed. So there's this particular introductory slides really talk about, you know, what you need before you can start. And as we go to the next slide, we can see that this now tells you about how you can prefabricate the panel, because that's what we are doing. We're prefabricating these panels or joists and so on. So here, what kind of bamboo you need, how do you actually provide the leaching for it, how do you start making a preparation for actually erecting it or fabricating it. And the next slide will go even further to talk about, you know, how it can be put together. And so it's always, you know, you make all the elements, then you put them together to see that everything works, then you dismantle, and that's when you take them, you know, where the place where they have to be erected. So this, I feel that if this online training is for fabrication and erection, if any architects become aware of the need from the administration and would like to join the tutorials, it would help in spreading the methodology for immediate camp facilities. I'm very keen that architects should start using these materials, try to see how you can get a feel of them. And I think if you do, then I'm sure that you will just love to use them because they are so easy. And again, as you keep on saying, they're zero carbon, so they will not hurt the planet. So this process of online tutorials that we have developed, we hope to provide a greater understanding of the use of bamboo, earth, and lime so that these could be used more extensively. I have a few more points to cover after the slide presentation. And I'm hoping that the experience of coronavirus forces us to pursue eco-urbanism, compelling us to look inwards to age-old solutions of our vernacular methodologies and medieval walled cities. For example, minimizing the creation of autocratic, iconic edifices to instead we start using locally available sustainable materials to reduce densification of cities as amply demonstrated by the spread of virus in New York, by adopting many attributes of the walled cities of Lahore, where you can banish the vehicular traffic, you can have walking streets, you can have open to sky terraces with your buildings, so the mental health of the people who are locked in or locked out will have some respite. And also I think those are very good for women because they find for children, as I've done in my Anguri Bagh project, where you're able to come out at any level, you are out on a terrace. So we need to pursue the much overlooked 24-hour cycle, mixed use development, integrating housing with commerce and leisure. Now, cities should become more manageable as more and more office workers begin to work from home. Again, I think this is such a boon because now women can actually work from home and they will not have to go to offices, so they can juggle their triple burden. So I think it's a very good omen for women. So we need to restore our urban heritage to prevent the replacement with high eco footprint multi-story towers. But most of all, we need to get Pakistan government to give up the Gulf and Western craze for building high energy consumptive tallest towers as they inhibit social distancing and aggravate environmental conditions. We should really have a movement to say we do not want multi-story towers in our cities anymore. So these virtual lectures are designed to provoke further discussion, to help us all to find ways to deal with post-COVID-19 world. I very much hope that not only will you join the future assemblies, but also contribute your views and suggestions, either today or online, which will enable us to navigate a course for serving humanity with compassion in our future endeavors. In conclusion, I have to say that it is only architects who have been trained as custodians of built environment. The time has come for you to come forward now. Let us join hands together to familiarize our harsh urban centers, humanize them into enclaves of eco-urbanism. Thank you so much, Fawzia Asad Khan, for making it happen. Thanks very much.